This FedGov Today program is sponsored by Rancher Government Solutions. On this edition of FedGov Today, the Army makes a big move on MOSA. The Pentagon starts moving everything to the edge, and the numbers game ahead for agencies. Welcome to FedGov Today in Washington, D.C., on YouTube, and around the world on the American Forces Network. I'm Francis Rose. The Army's expanding its footprint in the modular open systems architecture space. It's moving the concept from hardware to software. Major Domoniqué Hittner, U.S. Army, is digital engineer in the Office of the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Data Engineering and Software. Ma'am, welcome. It's great to have you on the program. Thanks for joining me today. Where's the Army coming from, and where's the Army going on MOSA?
So the Army is actually moving now, and thank you again for having me on your program. The Army is moving right now in our modular open system approach, which is a wonderful place to be in, and especially as we're establishing our digital engineering ecosystem to take the data from our system engineering artifacts and our digital artifacts and truly move it into a place that's cohesive to turn all of our data into actionable mission intelligence.
How did you assess where you are and where you have been to determine what you needed to do to build this digital engineering infrastructure?
So there's actually several technology adoption metrics that we established alongside with the Office of Secretary of War. We developed KPIs to help us inform our technology adoption across all of our portfolio acquisition executives. And this enables us to not only discern the true usability of the systems from an International Standards Association, effectiveness, efficiency, and user satisfaction, but to also really determine what truly needs to be sustained, what can be consolidated, to truly have a cohesive picture across the portfolios to really turn that data into something usable.
You mentioned that the Army's already moving out on MOSA. Are you using the same principles for modern open systems architecture for the digital engineering project that the Army uses in other areas and that some of the other services also use?
We are absolutely working together with our joint partners, and we're very honored to work with our industry partners as well. The biggest change that you'll see in our implementation guidance is we are taking really a common sense approach. You already do this in your home. We're taking truly a common sense approach to determining the full life cycle requirements up front. So that information is truly baked into our policies, into our contract guidance, into the development of those boundaries. So as we are truly providing a request for proposal, all of that legwork is done up front. And we've structured our teams to support this, and our organization within ASALT and within ADASM-DES is truly postured to provide that technical expertise to support all the portfolio acquisition executives and our joint programs.
You anticipated where I wanted to go next, which is what did you have to do infrastructure-wise, people-wise, to get people in the right places to be able to leverage what you want to leverage?
That's truly the blessing of having such a strong technical team. Within ASALT and also within ADASM-DES, we have what's called acquisition technical experts, which are people that are not only postured with operational experience, acquisition to expertise, but those true scientists, those true engineers that have the background to solve those complex, big DoD, DoW issues and problems and provide solutions that are meaningful and timely, thoughtfully and deliberately delivered to our warfighter.
You mentioned the acquisition workforce there. Some of the folks that I've talked to about MOSA over the years have said that kind of re-educating, reteaching the concepts to those acquisition folks is one of the challenges. Have you seen that in the work that you've done in the Army?
I have worked with the most absolute professionals in my entire, in my Army experience, and especially in the acquisition workforce. I had lots of operational experience too, and the pleasure of working with so many technical experts across all soldiers. And you would be shocked of how many true experts we have on the field today. But our acquisition workforce does have what's called acquisition technical experts. So people that have hard PhDs in those very difficult STEM fields, people that have the knowledge and the experience conducting research that actually delivers. work that actually produces actionable results that are thoughtful and deliberate. So that's really the game changer in our workforce. This is talent management.
Yeah.
The Army's moving now. And so with that, we have the standard identified, and we're obviously open and willing to work with our partners to ensure that we're not only meeting that standard, but excelling and truly delivering for all of our soldiers, guardians, airmen, sailors, civilians across the board, and our Marines.
How much of the change that you expect to drive here do you think will be tactical? How much of it do you think will be strategic? And how much of it do you think will be cultural, getting people to think differently about delivering solutions in a different way?
There will certainly always be laggards in any sort of technology adoption. And what's great about that is we have an opportunity to not only educate, but to continue to build the future force that we need to take on those tough challenges as they continue to persist. Our Army mission is no longer this linear mission. It's complex, and the solutions that we will need to adopt will not only transform across multiple engineering disciplines, across platforms from different types of agents, personnel, humans, across the board, autonomous systems. We need to be able to be postured and align our talents and resources to support that infrastructure. So this digital engineering ecosystem really leads us there, and it truly turns that data, that fragmented engineering data, into something you could use today.
Who do you want to be your end users? Who will benefit from having this data available to them in ways that they haven't had it available before?
So not only Army senior leaders, think ground force commanders, think portfolio acquisition executives, our capability portfolio executives as well, thinking through that Army transformation, acquisition transformation, but also soldiers. They deserve the absolute best software and systems, just like you would receive in your home. If you were in your kitchen and your digital filter inside of your refrigerator stopped working, you would replace the entire kitchen. You wouldn't replace the entire refrigerator. You would likely, find a suitable replacement that suits your needs and your budget, and you would know what you'd want up front. So it's a similar sort of premise of finding solutions that actually meet the needs up front and communicating those standards up front prior to request for proposal. So that way it's not really a surprise. We're working together to build this partnership.
I note that you use the word standards and not requirements, and that's another cultural thing, I imagine, that will be significant for the Army to navigate. Is that a fair observation on my part?
So requirements will be established up front for the full scale of the full cycle, life cycle of our work. And understanding those requirements to the best of our knowledge, because you may not know how the mission will change once you're on the ground, just to be frank. So, but understanding where you are today, having a blueprint of what the goal actually was at the time of need, so that way people can come to the table with the solution that makes the most sense. That is truly our goal, and we want to make sure that we are postured to support that end game and that infrastructure. But having that standard in place is important, because ultimately we don't just want a solution that's not going to work for our warfighter. We need the best. We do need the best types of solutions, and we need it to work and to be interchangeable if they're not meeting the standard. So being a part of that team in the beginning and communicating those to that end is critical for us, and we want to make sure that we're being as transparent as possible as we partner with our incredible industry team and the entire organic industrial base.
We have about a minute left. Where are some of the solutions that you expect to see this manifest itself rather quickly?
I'm really glad that you asked that. We are going to be submitting some requests for proposal, and we would love to work with our academic partners, our industry teammates, to really learn what's truly out there and ready to move out right now. We are ready to move, and we look forward to their partnership.
Ma'am, it's great to have you here. Thanks for joining me today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
You can read more about the Army and MOSA on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, the Pentagon starts moving everything to the edge. FedGov Today with Francis Rose. We'll be right back.
Innovation doesn't wait, and neither do we. At Maximus, we solve problems. Streamlining operations, delivering solutions at speed and scale that drive measurable results. From strategy to execution, we simplify complexity, building trust through expertise and innovative technology. Every service, every time. Efficient government delivered. We don't follow innovation. We drive it. Maximus.
Welcome back. The Pentagon says its new AI strategy and its work on 6G networks are two key elements of moving everything it can to the edge. Security is another priority military leaders have listed as more data and compute power is available at the edge. Adam Toy is Chief Technology Officer at Rancher Government Solutions. I want to pull back on that concept to begin with. What is the edge anyway in 2026? The way that the military is working today, Adam?
Well, first, thanks for having me today. You know, that's one of my favorite questions to answer. The edge is holistically subjective, but there still is this push across the department, the IC, civilian agencies, even commercial, towards moving towards the edge. And that's kind of the perfect storm of capability meets necessity. And from a capability perspective, compute keeps getting denser, smaller, less power constraints. And then beyond that, you have the ability to run GPUs, even in tactical edge deployments. But equally as important to that is the necessity. As technology advances, cyber warfare advances, the luxury of having connectivity to the outside world, whether that be a local data center or especially the cloud, that luxury doesn't even exist anymore. It's not even a reality. So we're seeing more and more often that mission critical workloads are pushing further and further out to the edge, specifically in the hands of the warfighter. So the further you can get out there, the more secure and capable you're going to be.
Is everybody's edge the same edge? It seems to me that when I talk to folks in one branch, especially military folks, but you're right, civilian agencies are talking more about the edge than they ever have. But when I talk to folks in one branch, it sounds different. And that's me reading between the lines, but it sounds different than it does when I talk to somebody in another
absolutely.
service.
The edge by design is completely subjective. You can ask 10 people who work an edge every single day what they think the edge is, and you're going to get 10 different accurate answers. What works for SATCOM might not necessarily work for an aircraft carrier, might not work for a tactical edge kit, might not work for a wearable technology that a soldier's wearing. But beyond the heterogeneity of those environments, the one thing that's not spoken about a lot is also kind of the technical requirements that it takes when you're working in all these disparate locations. How do you actually administer and manage and maintain all of these different workflows? And that's something we at Rancher Government are really trying to solve, that I like to call kind of that last mile problem.
So there are two things that I'm hearing more and more from these leaders that we're talking about that are trying to deliver what we've discussed so far. One is, how do they get information from edge point to edge point instead of from edge point back to HQ and then back out to another edge point? The other one is, how do you do this in a DDIL environment? Those are the two big things that it sounds like folks are looking for the next generation in. What's your sense of what that looks like moving forward?
That's absolutely correct. I'd say about 80 to 90% of our customers work in some form of an air-gapped environment. That's becoming far more often, the rule as opposed to the exception. And even in the commercial space, you see a lot of folks moving towards building for the air gap and working back towards a connected environment. For us, the focus around that, those DDoS environments, is making sure that we can simplify that deployment model. How do you make it that an enlisted soldier who doesn't have the technical, nor should have the technical acumen to actually bootstrap a device and put a mission critical application workload onto something, has a secured open platform to deploy this software on top of it without having to have a technical asset on the ground.
You bring up a great point too, which is this technology has to be available to people who by their nature should not be technology people, don't have to be. That's where we were for a long time. They don't have to be. Now it's that mentality of they should not be. This should be so simple and user intuitive.
Exactly, but that is one of the challenges of the edge, right? You have built-in complexity to it. So, and this is one of the kind of, forward progresses of software development, where software has really evolved in that far more can be put back to the platform as opposed to the application workload itself. So kind of what we're targeting is, how do we simplify that deployment model? How do we provide a platform so our customers can build soup to nuts their infrastructure to their mission critical application workload with a zero touch installation, as an example, where an E3 or somebody out in the field can literally plug in a USB stick, hit the power button, and magically their mission critical application is online.
What are the security implications for all of this?
Absolutely. Security is, just as important as the mission critical application itself. It's important to be baseline off of secured iterations. And that's why when you build this platform, we've kind of put it together, we've built it on top of our standards and our products that were already built up to federal standards to include STIG hardened implementations and all those things. So essentially there's already built-in reciprocity that when that mission application workload is running, the application developer only needs to worry about their application security and all the other things that go with that in terms of the operating system, the platform itself, and all those iterations between those are all kind of taken care of.
A final thought. We've talked about this from primarily a military perspective, a Pentagon perspective, but as I said, and you alluded to the fact, even commercial organizations now, I hear from civilian agencies all the time talking about the edge, whether that's workers in the field or whatever. Does that look different in that kind of environment than it does in a Defense Department environment?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it certainly does. And it really just depends because, like I said before, the edge, depending on who you talk to, is completely different. And we have customers today who treat a data center as the edge because technically it's disconnected, right? So it really just depends. But the fact of the matter is, if you're designing your platform the right way, it shouldn't really matter what you define the edge as. It should just be flexible enough and built on those open standards to really provide the flexibility that whether it's a civilian agency deploying to a localized data center versus wearable technology on a soldier, it should still be, from the application developer's perspective, the simplicity that's at the platform level.
Adam, it's great to have you here. Thanks for joining me today.
Greatly appreciate it.
You can read more about everything Adam and I talked about on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, the numbers game ahead for agencies. FedGov Today with Francis Rose. We'll be right back.
An executive sponsor who can be a loud vocal cheerleader for the technology, who can really drive home the value proposition to federal employees, because as federal employees, we don't like change a lot often. And AI is going to change how your agency operates. It's going to change your business processes. And as an employee, you need to understand why that is and why is this a good thing that this is happening.
There's another big thing that is important, which is around how they want to integrate with their existing systems. And so at the end of the day, a lot of what we're seeing in terms of AI applications involves integration with a case management system or a records management system, some existing system in place. And so how is that integration going to happen? Are we going to use APIs? Are we going to use something like model context protocols? So those are some of the early decisions around architecture that agencies need to make.
Welcome back. The clock is ticking on hundreds of appropriations that will expire at the end of the fiscal year. The shutdown last year and the partial closure at DHS now are complicating the way agencies track those programs. Philip Swagle's director of the Congressional Budget Office. Phil, welcome. It's great to have you on the program. How is this making things more complicated for agencies as they're tracking what's happening at the end of this fiscal year, at the same time they're trying to get ready for the next budget cycle?
Thanks very much for having me on. And as you said, it's a complicated time for agencies that we have the FY26, the 2026 fiscal year appropriations are not quite finished. As you said, there's still a partial shutdown at DHS, and the FY27 appropriation cycle is just beginning. And that's, well, one of the sure signs of the spring is the president's budget is coming, and then the appropriations process on Capitol Hill starts. We support that we work with the appropriators on the Hill, essentially as they figure out, how much and how to allocate the funds. For agencies, they have to track the process. They have to look at, as the appropriations committees in the House and the Senate take action, and they go subcommittee by subcommittee across the entire federal government, they look at what's been spent, they think about, well, what new programs do they want to authorize or not authorize, and agencies just have to track that and where the appropriators are going. What's
the hardest thing in your experience for agencies to pay attention to, what's going on the Hill, whether something they're working on is going to be continued next year, all of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a natural concern. Thinking about a shutdown, thinking about will there be a continuing resolution at the start of the fiscal year on October 1st. the agencies by now, the financial management people are professionals, they get it. The potential for CRs is just a fact of life. It's more the substantive issues of what will be continued, what will the president propose, what of those proposals will find acceptance and find support among members of Congress. And it's just kind of the swirl of the appropriations process, and that's the hard thing to track, but it's critical for federal government executives.
In a previous assignment, I had very active conversations with a colleague of mine each year when the president's budget proposal would come out. His position was, we should cover this till the ends of the earth. Mine was, it doesn't really matter because it's never going to look like that by the time Congress passes something. That doesn't seem to have changed much over the years. In that context, how much do you think agencies should pay attention when the budget proposal comes out versus once those committees and subcommittees that you just alluded to start to do their work?
Yeah, I do think the president's budget matters, and I know that's kind of the automatic response in the media, certain parts of it. Oh, it's quote dead on arrival, and that's across administrations, and I just don't think that's right. And of course, it might be the case for big proposals that are difficult, but the details matter. The focus of the administration across departments, across areas, domestic, national security, homeland security, that matters because that does affect what the Congress is thinking about. And of course, there's a natural give and take and a back and forth between the executive branch and the Congress. But what the president proposes, what the president focuses on matters, and I would pay attention to it.
Are there markers that you've seen over the years that help folks in the agencies understand trend lines, areas that are plussed up, areas that are not plussed up, and so on, that when that proposal comes out or when the committees start to do their work, people in the agencies can have kind of a guess of what direction things are going?
Yeah, for most agencies, it would be internal, looking to the political appointees, of course, to the secretary or the director of a smaller agency, and then the presidential appointees. And I was a presidential appointee in a previous administration, so I'm familiar with this process. The career people across the executive branch are professionals. The people we deal with from CBO at the agencies are really true career servants, and the expertise in the federal government remains. So I'm in some sense confident that as the administration sets out its proposals, the career staff will do what they've done and carry them out.
The financial management community in government looks to, they work together very closely. It's cross-agency collaboration. What have you seen over time, especially in the job that you're in now, where you're connected to them, but also kind of removed from them?
Yeah.
What have you seen as far as the way that workforce continues to move forward?
Okay, no, that's great, because you're exactly right. We are part of the federal government. We're the legislative branch, not the executive branch, but we have to manage our own budget. We rely, for us, on the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, to service our payroll. And there's been a lot of change. 2025, of course, was a volatile year for the financial management community. And from the government perspective, they just kept going. As they adapted to changes, funds coming, going, a shutdown. And to me, that's the incredible part of the community, of the financial management community, is the flexibility and the resilience.
What would you like to see happen for the financial management community in general across the government to improve it? Is there a skills area? Is there maybe just a numbers area where you would like to see the workforce move forward?
Okay. The first wish of everyone is for the budget process to work smoothly.
Yes. And,
for the appropriations to be done in time for the start of the fiscal year. And it's a wish. Wishes don't always come true. And of course, that's out of the hands of all the financial management professionals. And so in some sense, I think the community is doing well, is just adapting to what comes at it. And I don't have a suggestion or a wish other than to just to stay flexible and keep executing. And that's really in support of the U.S. people, of the American people.
We have just about a minute left. What do you see as the biggest challenge for the agencies in their financial management work as you communicate with them and as you talk to them about what they're up against?
Yeah.
What do you see them maybe struggling with or working to improve?
Okay, so we track the spending across the federal government, and we provide information to policymakers, to Congress, on that spending. And we see that the community has the same challenges that we face. We track it, and they have to execute it, especially when there's a continuing resolution, and the appropriation cycle goes into the fiscal year, let alone a shutdown. It's just hard to keep in mind the near-term challenges of paying people and executing on the budgets with the longer-term priorities. Because ultimately, that's what every agency wants, is to execute on the priorities of the administration. And it's doing both, getting the near-term, getting the checks written, getting people paid, and making sure the resources are there for the longer-term priorities. That's the challenge.
Phil, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks so much.
You can read more about everything Phil and I talked about on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. FedGov Today continues in just a moment.
I think you have to start with what you have. And then, of course, as new innovation and technology comes out, you're looking to improve your mission in different ways. You want to leverage some of that technology. But having this foundational reference architecture that you can measure that implementation against, gives you the metrics, gives you the data to help drive priorities to drive those new innovations into the architecture, or perhaps identify that they're not ready yet.
Welcome back. Coming up in just a moment, HR systems across government are getting upgrades as they get ready to plug into the new system the Office of Personnel Management's building. You'll learn how those systems can make the transition on HR transformation in depth. A FedGov Today original next on ABC7. Deputy Chief of Space Operations for Personnel, Catherine Kelly, and Cliff Perkey of Workday Government will tell you how HR transformation can support agency strategies and mission delivery. You can see HR transformation in depth next, or watch it on demand at fedgovtoday.com and on the FedGov Today YouTube channel. FedGov Today TV returns next Sunday morning at 10. I'm Francis Rose. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.